Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's PixelPlay Sidequests, your bonus content every Friday. I am Adam CS Radical. Join with me, as always, Kaylan and Jin and Chris. So, if you guys watched the recent episode of the PixelPlay podcast, you know that we finally met up in person. What did we do? That's none of your business. But we did actually go to an arcade, specifically a barcade. Well, more of a cafe arcade, but you get the idea. But
Why did you start with them saying it's none of their business? That makes it sound like it was way worse than it actually was.
look, you're the one that started by saying you finally got to see our lower halves in that. So you know what?
Stop! You're
going
just
full
making it
circle
even
with
worse
this.
now.
But yeah, we went to an arcade essentially. I mean, these things are few and far between we see these days. I mean, obviously, if you're around, there's your Dave and Buster's. I think it's called Game Time Social, I think is what we have local here as well. That's kind of like that. But like
There's Rec Room,
arcades,
Palladium.
they used to be like, they used to be all over the place. I remember like as kids, Palladium was a big deal to us. Like that was the literal like like that was our heaven, man. That was the place to be. And then, you had like, little coffee shops would have like, when I was a kid, I remember coffee shops would just have a Pac-Man table just right there, or there'd be pinball machines everywhere you go. Now it's really hard to find any place that has arcade machines if you're not at a convention, really, or these few places that we mentioned. Or I guess if you have the money to go buy them at arcade1up.com or whatever that site is. But my question to you guys is, do you think right now, like, because obviously when we went to that arcade, like, we all thought, oh my god, this is such a cool thing, because it's an arcade, it's got machines, there's also really good coffee and drinks and food there, and there's even like a couple of booths where you have like retro, like there's a Pac-Man machine there, or they have a Super Nintendo Classic on it with a little monitor that you can play right at the table. Like there's some cool things you can do there. But my question to you guys is, do you think that either starting now or in the next little while, like even in this decade, do you think like there's a prime chance for a comeback for arcades at this point, or is it still just going to be this like dime a dozen thing that you're going to see once in a blue moon?
Personally, I would love if they would come back, but I think just with the way that the world is right now, a lot of things are more digital. People are used to just getting their entertainment and their stuff right from the comfort of their couch, and they don't have to get up and do literally anything. Like it already was kind of dying with home consoles where you could just buy it and take it home. That's kind of what killed arcades originally. I think there is a place for them, but I think you'd have to find the right location and market. Like, I think if you went near a college or a university and opened up one very, very, very close, I think that, younger generation would want to do something like, oh, look at this retro thing that we were never a part of. Let's go hang out there. Especially if there's drinks and coffee and stuff like the one we were at. I think if we just went to a mall and threw one in there, I think it might do well at the beginning, but I don't know if it would be able to have the lasting power. Because even just going into a mall now since the pandemic, malls are not as busy, and a lot of the stores left after during that time anyway. So I think it would be something that can definitely be done, but it isn't going to be like it used to be, where you could just throw that in any location and people will come to it. You have to put it somewhere where people will not be too lazy to show up, because I think that's really just the deciding factor. Like, it's there, you're going to have to like make it where people are already close enough, or it's just a certain demographic of people where they're 20 and they like going out. They don't want to just sit on their couch. They want to socialize. They want to do whatever it is. So I think there's that approach. And that'll be a big deciding factor, I think. At least that's my take.
Yeah, I think we're probably in a early stage of a arcade resurgence. And I'm not saying it's going to go back to what it was in the 90s and the 80s, sort of where arcades were the spot. I think what it is that it's changing for its demographic and its audience, right? I think you're going to see a lot more barcades open up. You're going to see a lot more arcade coffee shops. The idea, like, speaking from my interest and like what I know, like the idea of just going to a bar or to a pub and just sitting and talking and drinking, I don't know how much resonance that has compared to, like, I think people nowadays like millennials, particularly when they go out, they want to be doing something while they're going out, right? It's not just enough to just be sitting around and chatting. So I think for the millennial, late Gen Z, sort of Gen X, like I think if it's like a hey, there's a place where you can go out and play some of the arcade games that you played as a kid, you can have a beer, hang out with your friends. Like it's a very easy social area to have, right? And I think like I could think of at least aside from like the Palladiums and the Rec Rooms and Dave and Buster's, I could think of at least three, maybe four, and I'm gonna call them barcades for simplicity, but just like arcades now that you can go and you can play and you can have a beer and hang out and stuff. And so I think that that's going to start to become more and more popular. And the same we see with like board game cafes, right? Like when people go out, they want to go out and be social. And I think having an arcade cabinet collection or a pinball arcade collection gives people something to do when they're going out and socializing. I think the big hurdle is going to be getting those systems, right? Like because they don't really make those arcade cabinets that much anymore. So you have to have either a situation where you are buying retro consoles, which, you know, do fall apart and you have to like know how to repair them and replace them, how to find the pieces, or you go the other route where you're buying like one-up arcade machines, right? And that might be the way to go. But I think like that's the biggest hurdle is where do you get these machines and these systems? But I think having a video game area that you can go and hang out with your friends while you're chatting, catching up after work, whatever, I think that has a lot of potential. And I think the market hasn't been saturated. I don't think it's going to be the heyday of what it was, but I think that there is going to be a resurgent that if you do it well, I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity to have a pretty cool arcade scene.
Yeah, my hope is that a lot more places, because I mean, if you go to a lot of pubs, there's almost always a golden tea. Like that's like the joke
Mhm.
that there's a golden tea there. I'd love to see there to be another one of those. Like I'd love to see like NBA Jam be like a more consistent thing that you see somewhere, or a pinball machine of any sort, right? Like I
Mhm.
think what the hope is that slowly but surely I'm not even saying like seeing like a bunch of other small arcade cafes or barcades open. More along just like places take a chance and just throw a machine in there and just see what happens if it makes them any bit of extra income or if it just brings a few more people in to just like keep them in the bar a little bit longer so they order another drink, right? Because like if you give them something else to do, because I mean it's why you see a lot of places have pool tables or like they branch out into other things. Like some of them have like trivia nights and other things like that. Like that
Mhm.
one isn't nearly as it's a one-time expense, assuming it doesn't break like right away, and hopefully you get people in the door that when they see that they go, "Oh, that's cool. They got that there." And once in a while they go, "Ah, fuck it, I'll try that." Mess around with it with my buddies, and then you stay along around long enough, you're like, "Ah, fuck yeah, I'll get one more beer before we go," and it's just a little
Yeah.
bit extra money in your pocket kind of deal. And I think, like you said, I think there is going to be a bit of a resurgence in arcades. I don't think you'll ever see a big one ever again like a Palladium. I think you'll see more like what we saw with the cafe that we went to, and even that was like a lot of machines. All things
Mhm.
considered, I think you might even see more places that are like maybe half of that, where you see
Mhm.
like you know one of the light gun games, a couple of pinball machines, and then a couple more games like that. Like maybe like up to 10 machines. I think that's something that'd be a lot more reasonable. But I think that that's something that you could see down the road. And I would welcome that too, because obviously, not even just because of it being, from my era, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like you said, sometimes, like, as much as I love talking to people at a bar, sometimes it's also nice to do something else.
Yeah.
There's a bar local to me that I wish I could go to more often, but I hate driving into the downtown core. But like, there's a ping pong bar that's really fucking cool. Board game cafes are really cool. Like that's the like. There's a lot of these things now where it's a cafe or a bar and this, and I think with
Mhm.
arcades slowly starting to come back in style a little bit because again, like retro is becoming pretty big again that I think you'll start to see a little bit more of that. Not to like a grandiose amount, but I think you'll start to see a little bit more now. It's just a matter of what those things are. Is there a resurgence for Dance Dance Revolution? Is there a resurgence for, your classic like pinball machines, your classic like Simpsons fighting game like Street Fighter? Like what is it that really clicks? I'm not really sure what specifically, if it might just be a mismatch, but either way, like I'm just hoping that it's something like that.
Yeah, I think like there's also the aspect. I'm surprised like if I owned a small pizzeria, right? Or if I owned like a small restaurant, like I would go out and buy a one-up machine, right? Especially like I said, a pizzeria where you go in, you buy a slice, and you've got, you're waiting 2-3 minutes while you wait for your pizza to cook, right? Or you're a takeout place and you've got an Uber Eats guy who's waiting for his order to get made. Like you're now making revenue by people just standing around, because if you charge 50 cents a game, like whatever, that's just extra revenue that's just coming in. And
Yeah,
so
you have any sort of, like, even stores, like if you put a machine there and you got kids that are bored as fuck, parents give them a couple of bucks, they can go do their shit for 20-30 minutes.
yeah, as I heard you say, like, hey, kids are bored and stuff. The one thing that might have changed is that, like, we now have smartphones now. So if we have a couple minutes to spare, we're just gonna hop on Reddit. We're gonna hop on TikTok. We're gonna just hop on our phones. That
Well, but the
maybe
thing is like, do you want a kid staring at their phone potentially walking into shit, or do you want them to literally stand at this one place you know they're not going to leave it, and you can just go do your stuff, and you know that they'll be right there when you come back? As a parent, that means a lot in these days too.
the other problem though is who has a quarter, let alone
Yeah,
like change.
that's what I was going to
It's
say.
very
With
easy to
all
have a
of these
token
ideas,
machine. Very easy just to put a token machine right next to it.
yeah, you could do that. If I don't know if do these one-up machines allow for attaching like payment or anything like that? I don't even know. Like a debit credit like tap kind of thing. Because I know you
I
can
don't know.
buy those things individually,
Well,
but
and
yeah,
that's
you do
probably
something like
something that I think machines should also be working towards too, whether it's the machines themselves or a token machine that's very easy to just tap and just
Yes.
pay for X amount of tokens.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you can introduce tap, that's because that's another thing. At least this is, again, just from my perspective. I just know people that would see that, and then all of a sudden the hurdle of figuring out how to put money in it, even if it is a token machine, but you need real money or anything, as soon as they can't just tap and start playing with it, they're just like, oh, that's too much work. And I
Yeah.
think that it works so well in the barcades and stuff like that, because you're already going to sit somewhere and have a drink, and usually it's that you buy a game card or you buy something that lets you then tap your way
They're
around
taking
these
that. They're
different
taking
machines.
that. They're solving that barrier between I don't have money and the game needs money.
Yeah, yeah. Because then you just have one bill at the end of the night and with your drinks, and then you bought a couple token cards or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
you're good. Like it simplifies the millennial issue of I don't want to have to work hard to get what I want right now when it comes to entertainment. Because
Mhm.
again, they could just stay home and watch stuff on their TV, where the smart app on their TV that already exists, they can just load it up, or the games on their smartphone or anything like that, right? So it's about getting over that hurdle of paying for the machines. Even if the machines are like Adam, you mentioned a bar that has like an NBA Jam or something. Even if like I was a bartender, I'd maybe even buy that and it was free to play, as long as, somebody still like got a bill that's open or something like that. Like you can't just come in and play it
Well, that's the thing.
if you're
Like,
not buying
if
it.
if you have somebody sitting at a table and they say, "Hey, can I get some tokens for the thing?" Like, and the guy just simply is like, "Yeah, here you go."
Yeah. Or even if it's like literally just free, as long as somebody is like drinking. Because the quarter you're going to make off that machine versus the $8 beer you're selling, somebody buys a beer and they can go play NBA Jam for free. You're going to make your money back on the thing, and it keeps people in buying the actual revenue thing versus, a token that is $1 or something per time or something.
Yeah, I think it's also
Like you
like a
never know.
conversation too on like how machines operate these days. Like, even like there should be some sort of easier way, especially in smaller areas, like to be able to get not having to use coins. Like, I think we're at a point now that I think arcade machines also should probably look into how they can evolve. Because if it does end up
Yeah.
making a comeback, it also should adapt to the current times too.
Mhm. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they're obviously doing something, because if you go to a Palladium or a Dave and Buster's, they're using cards, so there is some sort of
Yeah.
NFC chip reader that you could
Yes.
do it.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think
it's
that's
a case by case basis too. So, some places are still
Oh,
going to
yeah.
run with tokens, some places won't. I hope that we start seeing them in smaller supply though, because like I do like the idea of a game time social, like a big place with a lot of machines. I do not like the amount of people, because that's when you get into the point of like people are like haphazardly, like, especially when there's drinking around, you're gonna get a couple of drunk people that are friggin' breaking the machines and stuff, and it's very uncomfortable to be around. Whereas the place that we went to felt very chill, very communal. Like, that felt like the right place to be at. I hope more of those exist, because I think the other problem with the Dave and Buster's is that you get more of the frat boy bro like drinking culture, so that's not really my thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's even not just with where you'd expect it, because for example, where I go and get my hair cut, it's a very like it's a place designed for people between say the ages of 20 and I don't know, maybe 50 now. But it's
You can just
definitely
say
for like
great clips. It's okay.
yeah, no, it's a barber. But they have like Marvel
Is
Comics
that what they're calling
posters
themselves now?
up. Yeah, yeah, that's it. They changed their name. They've got like Marvel stuff up, and they're trying to obviously like keep the different demographics happy and make it like a cool place to be. They have one of the one-up machines. They've got Street Fighter 2. I don't know which one. There's like 30,000 different versions, but they have a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, and it's free because they just bought the one-up machine. And it's just meant for people being in the waiting area while you're waiting to get your haircut. And I was surprised when I went in there. I saw that. I was like, that's cool. I don't want to be the guy that goes and uses it because I don't want to be the first person to do it. I'm too shy to do that. But then all of a sudden I would look and there was like a lineup of people. Some people are getting their haircut, their kids using it. Some people are using it while their kids getting their haircut. Some kids are waiting for the adult to finish it and they're getting upset. Why can't I play? And the adult's like, go away, kid. I'm stronger than you. There's just so many people that were actually using it that I now, whenever I go in, if I'm early or if the guy who cuts my hair is behind, I'm playing Street Fighter 2. Like I just go up and I just start playing it. And it's just like very cool that it's there and it's so used. Like it was a great investment to keep people happy just while waiting for something else, like getting their haircut instead of just sitting and being on their phones. So
Yeah,
there's
definitely
even
an
just
applicability to these that it can be very useful going forward.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In a bar scene where there's the one or two, a bigger like barcade where there's a like it's meant to be like that's the entertainment you go for, or even just the smaller things of where you are, like a haircut place or whatever. Like it's definitely nice to see and definitely I would love if there was more for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully there is more, and we'll see down the line here. But that's going to do it for this episode of Sidequests. Thank you so much for checking us out. Obviously, here on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content. Every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern for Sidequests. Main show goes up Wednesdays at noon. We will see you guys next week. Bye-bye for now.